Hello guys. Welcome to Top Anime Sensei. This video is the continuation video after the new enemies. So if you have not watched it, then please watch it. The link is in the description. So without any further delay, let's start. But before we start, please like, subscribe and press the bell icon so you don't miss the updates. I was glad that someone else was acting as the protagonist now. If there was no justice and fairness, why would the council be needed in the first place? The speaker shouted. Keep going. I cheered internally. A bunch of old geezers, quit yapping about. You guys can run your mouth however you want when I'm finished dominating the Demon Lord. Reiner seemed confident in his victory. That guy already pissed off Hinata. I probably wasn't needed. Just gonna pretend I didn't see that. Elric-sama, according to our contract, we only agreed to be your bodyguards. If you intend to tread this path yourself, I will see this as a breach in contract. Oh, even the commander of Apostles of Vert didn't want to intervene? I almost treated them the same. It was good that he let us know early enough. That's right. In my opinion, Demon Lord Rimuru-sama is an extremely dangerous character. He's definitely not to be underestimated after having created a labyrinth with those insane monsters. Was she praising me? How boring, cowards will only get in our way. So, Guy was the same kind of person as Reiner? The type of person that was overconfident and ignored other people's opinions? He looked at me with great hatred, but I couldn't recall anything that I'd done to deserve such hate. Either way, the venue was on the brink of war. However, perhaps because it lacked a key factor, no one had taken any action. I sighed internally about the helplessness of the situation and decided to observe quietly. Just as things were about to escalate, Elric suddenly raised his hand. Silence. Everybody listened carefully now. Elric-sama has something to say. Gavin yelled. Somehow, he had moved down from the second floor to right next to Elric without anyone noticing. Elric nodded his head in satisfaction. Slowly glancing at the surroundings, he began to speak. Members of the council. At this moment, in this place, you may express your opinion freely. Will you join us and become the champions that will eliminate the Demon Lord? Or will you seek alliance with the Demon Lord and stand against humanity? I, Elric von Ingracia, believe that the fellow representatives of the Western nations will make the right call. Elric's eyes shone, almost as if presenting on a stage. Oi, are you deciding to vote on the subject now? I asked unconsciously. Elric nodded as if this was only natural. So, with all the mess he was making, he still wanted to save some face? Moreover, even if they started voting, they wouldn't get over half of the supporting votes. Hee, isn't that only natural? Of course, we will determine the issue democratically with the majority vote. However, it won't matter whether or not we even hold a vote since I am certain that the council will agree to my plan. That line caught my attention. His confidence almost implied that the result had been fixed internally. Actually, now that I thought about it, a lot of things were strange about this guy. Even if he was a prince, where did he get the balls to mess around in the venue where all the nation's representatives were gathered? Normally, such an act would not be tolerated. Then what was the reason for his confidence? Answer: there is a high likelihood that most of the councillors have been bribed. Ah, no wonder. I didn't expect him to bribe even foreign councillors. If this were handled poorly, it could lead to an international incident, which was why I didn't think he would resort to such a dangerous tactic. It was my miscalculation that led to this mistake. Then, let us vote. Let's have a fair and just verdict. We shall defeat the Demon Lord and dominate him. Those who approve of this idea, please stand up. As the prince's voice rang, several sneering councillors stood up. I see, so they were all in on this from the get-go. If this was the case, then it really couldn't be helped. Even though the situation wasn't ideal, we still had plenty of time. Even if we were to be rejected, we would just have to go from there. Now we can only accept the result of the vote. Report: there are no issues. Everything is within expectations. Within expectations? Raphael-san sent me the impression of an evil grin. On that note, didn't Soya's investigation reveal a lot of things? For instance, the world's view on our nation, the treasury of different kingdoms, as well as the reactions of different royal families to the event. There were even records of each nation's meetings. All of this was investigated thoroughly by Wisdom King Raphael-san. I quickly formulated a file of documents inside my stomach. I took it out and found that they were several ledgers. So, you really got everything under the control, Raphael-san. Before I knew it, Raphael-san had grasped the weak points of the colluding counselors. The ledger had detailed information about who had taken bribes. If this were to go public, it would severely affect their careers. Once we had hard evidence of their embezzling, all of this would just be a silly drama. We worked discreetly. As expected from Wisdom King Raphael-san, how fearsome. Report, there is no need to present this evidence. Master has already won. As I was just wondering what that meant, the result came. Several counselors stood up and began to applaud. Seeing this, Elric began to deliver his victory speech. The verdict is decided, the votes are over half, and the motion has been passed. Elric said smugly. Gavin and Reiner also held disgusting smiles and prepared to arrest us. However, they got a bit too ahead of themselves. Most counselors were actually still seated, and there were less than a third of the members standing. That idiot Elric, being so confident in his scheme, had begun bragging about his victory without even checking. Even the counselors who supported Elric realized that there weren't enough votes for the motion. They looked around in panic, pale, as they realized they were the minority. The result was obvious. Those who were against the idea of defeating the Demon Lord were the majority. The number of pages in the ledger was greater than the number of counselors who have stood up for Elric. That number was enough to make the majority, but some of the counselors seem to have changed their minds. Answer: it seems that with the deactivation of mental interference, they have recovered their conscience. I see. So, they realized how stupid they were after regaining reason. That was certainly good to know. So, all the fellow counselors had decided to join forces with me based on the rules of justice and fairness. Even though some were moved by bribery before. Answer: that was likely an effect of mental interference. It could evoke people's desire. It seems to have an extraordinarily strong influence. Then I kind of felt sorry for them. It was just like Masayuki's unique skill hero. Similarly, that skill affected the mind, which was very difficult to deal with. Masayuki, however, had no control over it. But this time, the people who orchestrated this incident seemed to be selective with their targets. I wasn't sure who did this, but it was definitely a problematic opponent. Anyway, surely those counselors who have regained their reason were able to tell what's right and wrong. Then I would treat them with the same courtesy and keep their embezzlement a secret. But if one counselor's judgment could determine the fate of a nation, then there was something wrong with the system. If the counselor representing a nation turned corrupt, people would also think ill of the nation they represented. Oi, will you calm down now? Take a look at what is really going on, I said casually to Elric. What are you? He still hadn't realized his situation. His sheer stupidity was embarrassing to watch. Are you a clown? Honk honk? Hinata suddenly called out. What? Oops, how rude of me. Prince Elric-sama is just too hilarious. Hinata had watched this whole charade with cold eyes. Even as she began to come to my aid, she still looked calm. However, she had already entered her fighting mode. I didn't want to lose my momentum, but Hinata simply wouldn't stop. Looks like more than half of the people here voted against you. As the third party who stands on a fair and just ground, I shall announce this verdict as final. And regarding the matter of whether you have the authority to initiate such a vote, the council shall hold an investigative inquiry later on. How can this be? You guys, are you betraying me? Elric complained loudly. Funny. Things turned out pretty different from how he imagined. His narcissism made his actions even more laudable. Hinata seemed pleased at this, just as I was, to see all the unpleasantness gone. Indeed, Elric-sama has a point. Gavin said, do you have any idea what you are doing? To have the guts to do something like this, I'll see to it that our nation's aid will. Hold on, what's that supposed to mean? Count Gavin, could you elaborate on that? While Gavin's protests were almost incomprehensible, it was mixed with phrases that couldn't be unheard, like, our nation's aid. Report, there is available information about it from the documents. Hearing Raphael-san's words, I checked the files and found detailed records there. Anti-flooding construction in the Kingdom of Rybok, food support for the drought in Karnataka. There are other nations here as well, and they seem to have promised them all sorts of aids in payment. So, were they all tasked with what is happening today? By the way, if you were to cancel these aids just because they won't proceed with your plans, it will basically be a public announcement that your actions were nothing but despicable bribery. What? How do you know such classified information? And that's it. Thank you so much for watching. And if you guys have not watched my other videos, then please watch them. The links are in the description. And don't forget to like, subscribe and press the bell icon so you don't miss the updates.